Good morning. Welcome, everyone. Thanks for coming out today to the new SBP auditorium. Once again, it's great to see you all in person. I know it's been a couple of months. Special thank you to Sanford Burnham Prebys Medical Discovery Institute for the use of this brand new auditorium. Everything now has been upgraded in the last year. It's wonderful. We can have people online. They can hear us. We can hear them. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'd like to introduce the principals of the organization. Hope you all know Bill Lewis. He's he's right here right now. He's our president, and he does the newsletter summaries, and he sets up all of the speakers. He does the luncheons. He does so much stuff. I really hope that you appreciate the job that Bill does for this organization. Thank you. We have Jean Van Vliet, our director and treasurer. Steve Pendergast is not with us personally today, but he's our secretary and does the newsletter editing. We have Bill Manning, our director and videographer, although we now have Patrick, who's also going to be doing videography for us. Myself, Aaron Lamb, director and facilitator of the meetings. We have John Tassi, our webmaster. Bill Bailey, our librarian. And of course, there are you, well over 900 members. Everyone is a volunteer, and you can be too. Are there any people new here today for the very first time? Just raise your hand. Did the three of you get this newcomer packet when you came in? All right. Can we get one more to this gentleman? There you go. You're not Brian, are you? No. No, okay. Yes, the newcomer packet, it should have a profile form on the cover sheet. Please fill that out and hand that in either to Bill or myself before leaving today. This information kit will have a lot of information that is very useful, especially to people recently diagnosed, gets you in touch with articles and booklets and so forth. And filling out that cover sheet will get you we'll get you contacted hopefully within the next week to discuss your personal situations, see where you are in your treatment, see what other information we might be able to get to you of assistance. You'll get to talk to one of the guys that's had a lot of experience with treatment. It's really extremely useful. It'll also get you signed up for our mailing list for the newsletters and announcements for the meetings. So, an all hands welcome. Who's here for the first time? We saw 3 gentlemen already here for the first time. And how many have been recently diagnosed? You know, perhaps the last few months haven't really started treatment, but looking into stuff. How many have had PCA for less than 1 year? Go ahead and raise your hand. All right, a couple guys. 1 to 4 years? Yeah. 5 to 10 years? I know, I'm getting up there. 11 to 15 years? Quite a few, and longer. Gene, 21. 23. The point of this little survey was, especially for you newcomers, you realize that even though cancer can be very daunting, you have a long life ahead of you. There's no better time to get prostate cancer than today, because the treatments are literally phenomenal compared to what they were even when I had it 7 years ago. Now, another survey, and especially for you newcomers, look around and see who raises their hands during these questions, because if you have specific questions about certain types of treatment, those are going to be the people that you want to go up and ask questions to, ask them about their experience. So who has been on active surveillance? All right. Who has had surgery? Okay. Who's had radiation, whether it's proton, X-ray, brachy, all right? ADT and hormone therapy. Yeah, these are all very common treatments. Who's had chemotherapy? I have a couple members here. Who have had new treatments such as HIFU, laser cryofocal therapies, immunotherapies, Afigo, Pluvicto. All of the above. He's the man. How many people have had recurrence? Yeah, that's why some of us are here, looking for what's the next treatment. And who is undecided about future treatment? Pretty much everyone might be raising their hand here, right? Okay. I want to note that we are on Instagram. We are up over 1,000 followers. Please do check us out. It's instagram.com/IPCSG3. So do follow us, click on some posts, and like them. Bill Lewis has done a fantastic job of getting our message out there. This helps us get all of this information that we get to share in here out into the web, get this access to a lot of other people by way of Instagram as well as YouTube. All of our meetings are recorded and available, and we get a lot of people that watch these programs later on. Now, our support to you comes in the way of our website, which I hope you're all familiar with. We are also on YouTube, as I said. Prostate Cancer Support is the name of the channel you can subscribe to. We have our meetings on the third Saturdays of every month, but not in December. And we have the newsletter on the website, by email or mail. You can get them. And there's a hotline number. Bill Lewis is taking calls on the hotline number. For those of you recently diagnosed, I know when I was just absolutely scared and paranoid and didn't know what to do, where to turn. And, especially back then, if I'd known about this hotline number, that is the perfect number to call when you're in that situation. What do I do next? We do have additional support for you, or I should say others have additional support for you. There's a very low-cost PSA testing by Ulta with the link there. You can also find this information on the website. Promise is a germline DNA saliva-based testing, which is free. And there is, I also wanted to mention the YMCA Live Strong Prostate Cancer Therapy Exercise Program, which I believe is still free as well through the YMCA. It's very important when you're on hormone therapy to remain very active, and this is probably one of the best programs to be a part of during that time. There is an upcoming conference I'd like to advertise. The PCRI conference, which is up in LA, is going to be September 7th and 8th, and we are lucky enough to have gotten a 50% discount code. Not that it's really that expensive to go to anyway. PCRISG, and thank you to Bill Manning for getting us that. All right, so how many people were a bit surprised and disappointed when we canceled the June meeting? Again, going back to the survey, yes. I got to personally apologize for that. So I failed to set up a backup meeting facilitator for that meeting. And the key thing is that the guys running this organization have been doing it for a long time. We've effectively been working as backups, understudies, if you will, to each other. But once in a while, like two of us might not be able to help out for that particular meeting. And that was kind of the case last month. And so it's time that we look for additional people to volunteer for the organization. It's time to bring on a few understudies to each of us here, because we can't always cover each other, unfortunately. And so that involves, basically, I have the list of Bill Lewis's responsibilities here, in addition to us. But take a look at what Bill is essentially doing a lot of times here. We would really like some help signing up meeting guests, doctors, roundtable speakers such as today, et cetera, taking over the meeting luncheons. You might remember a couple years ago, or I'm not even sure if we certainly didn't do it before COVID.
We started with the first meeting back, but it's been like 2 years now.
Yeah. We've been having these wonderful free lunches, folks. All you have to do to get the free lunch is have prostate cancer, but, we, years ago did not have these luncheons, and these luncheons have been very useful for us to be able to chat after the meetings about, topics of our own needs as well as the meeting info. And we could use some additional help with that. I really would appreciate somebody volunteering to be the backup meeting facilitator just 1 or 2 times a year. I was on vacation last month, and that's pretty much why we lost that meeting. If we had somebody I could directly go to be the backup, I would really appreciate it, and that wouldn't happen. I mean, imagine if we had to do that for Dr. Lamb or Dr. McCay or the Department of UCSD Radiology when they come in. That would really be a loss to everybody. And so think about what that loss would mean just to you, and see if, volunteering 1 or 2 hours coming up at a meeting that you're planning to attend already, and stand here and essentially do what I do. It would benefit everybody. Now, I was not part of volunteer organizations before this group. I was paranoid the first time I was going to be meeting facilitator. I mean, come on, I'm an engineer and supposedly antisocial and trip over my words and stutter and everything else. But I've, figured out how to do it. What's that? I stumbled through it at first, and I get a lot of compliments for running these meetings. It's not that hard. We don't have to be perfect. And please, if one of you would volunteer to just back me up once in a while, please just see me and let me know. We could also use some assistance with the newsletter, whatever editing, proofreading is needed, accounting assistance with Jean, as well as taking hotline calls. And so, I can't emphasize how important this is right now. There will likely be significant changes to the organization if we don't have more volunteers. And that could mean anything from, we might have to go to only having meetings every other month, or we might have to merge with another organization to have the support that we need. And the meetings are not going to be the same as they have been. I mean, this organization is touted across the country for how wonderful it is at getting information to patients, not just in the room but on the web and stuff. So please, if you're willing to volunteer, please raise your hand right now, and thank you. And why don't you? Your spot. My spot. Excellent. This gentleman. Yes, that's right. And I think I saw one more hand. Yes.
I'm going to go facilitator too.
Having two would certainly help me out. Because honestly, we also are missing our greeter today. And having a backup greeter would be great. Somebody that can put out the signs and bring them in and so forth. It would really help out. So please come up and see me. Make sure I write your names down, contact information, so we can, Bill.
I also want to mention that there's a little urgency with regard to my position, where my family's under heavy pressure to move to join our children in Utah, and we're planning on November.
Yeah, so Bill, as the president of this organization, will not be taking care of all these responsibilities come November, and we have to fill in for that. So again, if you're questioning in your mind whether you can help out, the answer is yes, you can help out. Come and talk to us, please. All right. Okay, so reminder of our support group purpose. We share patient-focused experience on becoming your own case manager through informing, networking, and caring. We are a group of experienced participants, but we are not medical professionals. And any sharing by anyone of our group may not be a substitute for your medical counsel. And we do need your support, specifically your financial support. We are a 501c3 nonprofit organization. And can I get a couple of volunteers to take some of the baskets around? Donations to our organization are tax deductible. There's no medical or religious affiliations. Our largest costs are in terms of running our website, our advertising, our mailings, video, etc. Please do make a donation. Online via PayPal can work, or you can send a check to the P.O. Box address that you see here. That address is also available on the web. Excuse me, man, there was one more thing I wanted to mention about that. Just to go back to this other slide for a moment, this first line item, signing up other doctors. A lot of us, I was extremely lucky that I had a very wide network for my insurance, that I was allowed to go to any doctor that I wanted to. That's not the case for a lot of you out there. How many people would like to go and talk to Dr. McKay or talk to Dr. Lamb? Yes, absolutely. Right? If your insurance is not willing to cover that cost, you're looking at upwards of $500 to $1,000 for that visit. But it's free when we get those doctors to walk in the door here. So if there is a doctor that you personally really would like to have come talk, that you want to specifically ask questions for, this is a chance to please, sign up to help bring doctors like that in. It's not that hard to call up their offices. A lot of them are familiar with our organization or want to, come and talk to us to show us, doctors love to show off what they've learned and researched and so forth. And so, please be willing to sign up for that task. All right, so upcoming meetings. We do have some exciting upcoming meetings. I know that Dr. McKay will be coming in the fall, but next month we're going to have Telix Pharmaceuticals. They're going to give the results of the Prostate global trial. You might remember that Telix was here a year and a half ago or so. They are pursuing what you might have heard of, the PSMA-based radiation, Pluvicto, right? That's a gene. Pluvicto is the one that essentially Telix is doing a modified version of for earlier treatment, right? This Pluvicto treatment it's the smart bomb that finds the individual cancer cells and destroys them. It's fantastic, but right now it's only for very advanced cases. Telix is trying to bring that much earlier into the treatment timeline. So this is a fantastic trial to learn about. This is going to be part of the wave of the future. For today, though, we have our member roundtable. We're going to start out with Bill Manning, who's joining us via Zoom today. Then we'll have Mike McCarey and Herschel Kagan. And so let me turn it over to Bill. Go ahead and share your screen, and hopefully the audio is still working.
Yes.
Can you hear me okay?
Can everyone hear Bill okay? Yes. Okay, we got a yes here.
Okay, let me share my screen. Okay. Well, thanks everybody. Before I start on my my story, I just want to say a few quick words about me personally. As you notice, I'm on Zoom instead of shooting video, and that is going to be the future course of action on my behalf. I'm not going to be attending the meetings physically anymore. Circumstances have come up that makes that very difficult. So I will still be editing the videos. My very trusted videographer, friend, and accomplice, Patrick Espinoza, will be filling in for shooting the meetings. As I said, I'll be editing, putting them on YouTube. And then another quick word I would like to say regarding the videos. I did my first IPCSG video back in January of 2010. So I've been recording our meetings basically for the last 14 plus years. Prior to COVID, we used to make DVDs. We actually distributed quite a few of them. And basically technology and COVID put the end to that. And so now we're on YouTube. So it's been a pretty remarkable time doing all of these meetings. And I just wanted to give a special shout out to Lyle LaRoche, who passed away a few years ago, and Gene Van Fleet, for those two men being founders of IPCSG, and all the work and effort that they have put into growing the organization and making it what it is today, and then also to what it meant for me personally. So with that, I'm going to go ahead and get started on my journey on active surveillance. So in 2009, I was getting a routine health test for getting some life insurance. And I came back with a PSA of 4.1. At that time, I had no idea what a PSA even was. And the insurance rejected me and said, nope, 4.0 is normal, quote, normal, end quote, and you are not. So sorry, Charlie. So I thought I would show them. And a few months later, I went back and got another test at my HMO. And whoa, surprise, it was 6.1. So that basically put me on the immediate path for a biopsy. Again, I was operating in the blind here. I was just doing what I was told. And they came back with 12 cores, 5%, 3+3 Gleason in one of the 12 cores. And then I was recommended for surgery, being told that I was a great candidate for it. Well, of course, I was a great candidate. I was in good health. I was 57. And, what could go wrong? So that was the beginning of my journey. So I immediately started into a education process. And this was a process that I shared with my wife because she was very, very concerned at the time that I was not jumping into treatment, but she was very willing to let us do some more research. So one of the major influences for me at that time was a book called The China Study. And after reading that, it made a pretty profound impact on me. And so that was part one. I was being seen at Kaiser at that time, and a gentleman at Kaiser told me about this group called IPCSG that I ought to go see one of their support meetings. So in September of 09, I attended my first meeting, met Gene, got a lot of information, and found out about this doctor up in Ventura called Dr. Bond, who did a test called the color Doppler ultrasound. And basically, it was a rather unique high-end ultrasound that was done in color as opposed to the low-res grayscale ultrasound you get when you basically get your biopsy done. So he did the ultrasound, results came back negative. He said there was a few suspicious cells, but he wanted me to come back in 6 months. And I said, okay, no problem. And he recommended active surveillance. Now, taking a half step back, my urologist said, yes, there is this thing called watchful waiting. And watchful waiting at that time was basically you watched and you waited. You waited for symptoms to manifest to the point where you knew something was wrong. And unfortunately, because of the treatments 15 years ago, by the time symptoms manifested themselves, you were in serious trouble. So that wasn't really a good path for me, but active surveillance was gaining speed. It had actually started many years before, but was still not really recognized by most urologists. So I declined the surgery. Then in 2010, I went back, got a second ultrasound. Everything looked fine. He said that basically the problem was I had BPH. Well, big surprise there. My gland was 67 cc's at the time. He also added another test called the PCA3 test, which came back negative. Now, I might mention that that test by itself over time became less and less used. Its results were not as conclusive as they had originally hoped, but ultimately it has become part of a test that is commonly used now called the ExoDx test, and the PCA3 is one component of it. So basically, I started on my new diet. My weight and cholesterol dropped. My PSA had dropped back down to 4.13. Remember, it was 6 before. Now it's back to 4.13. Then it went up to 5.2. My DRE was negative. Then between 2011 and 12, I got biannual PSA tests. You can see the results kind of jumped around a bit, 4.8, 5.4, back down to 4.3, up to 4.5. Got another DRE. It was negative. I went back in 2012 to Dr. Bond for my third ultrasound, color Doppler. He said everything looked fine except for BPH, and my prostate gland was now 80 cc's. So another interesting fact was in 2012, I've discovered a piece of family history. I discovered that my birth parents had both died of cancer at 64 and 65, and also had an uncle that died of prostate cancer, though his age was unknown, circumstances were unknown. So for some, they would have found this a very alarming fact. I took note of it and continued to move on. So in 2013, PSAs again up to 5, down to 4.8, DRE negative again. Now I went for my fourth ultrasound. And by this time, Dr. Bond was really saying he wanted to do a targeted biopsy. And I told him that I did not want any more biopsies unless there was a compelling reason. Well, he did his ultrasound and said, though not compelling, he did find an area that was kind of suspicious, and he really recommended doing it. So I gave in. He did a targeted biopsy. He did 7 cores in that area, and the results came back negative, as in negative. So I sent those samples out for a second opinion, and they were confirmed, meaning that in those 7 samples, they couldn't find any cancer, period. Okay, so now to 2014 and 2015, my PSAs continued to rise. It hit a new high of 7.5 down to 6.1. In 2015, it was 6 area, back up to 7.1. DRE was negative. And what Dr. Bond, we were at a critical juncture at this point. MRIs up to that point had not been very useful, but they had improved to the point where using a multi-parametric technique where they're taking multiple images with software analyzing the imaging in different ways was becoming very popular and very important. In fact, Dr. Ross Schwartzberg from Imaging Healthcare Specialists came to speak to IPCSG back in either 2015 or 16 to basically inform us of this new protocol. So I went and got my first MRI. The results came back negative, and I was given a PIRAD grade of 2. I might point out that there's 5 grades of PIRAD. PIRAD is a methodology much like the Gleason score, which gives a map of how radiologists should look at their MRIs. Prior to that, it was all over the map, kind of the Wild West as far as how one radiologist would say, here's a problem, another one would say, no, there isn't. And you never knew exactly why they were grading it that way. So now with the PIRAD system, it kind of put everybody in more of a box where everybody was, playing from the same page. So a PIRAD 1 is the lowest you can get, a PIRAD 5 is the highest. And again, what we're talking about here is risk. In other words, it's not the fact that that you do have this, it's the risk of having advanced prostate cancer versus low risk. Remember, I'm in the low risk category. So now my gland volume again was 80 cc's, and I was given a rating of PSA density of 0.1. Now, what that means is that it's a ratio that had been developed over the years of basically taking the size of your prostate gland and then dividing it by your PSA score. And the reason for doing that is that one of the most common reasons for your PSA score going up is your prostate gland is increasing in size. There is a direct correlation between the two. So that kind of harkens back to the old, 4.0 PSA being a, quote, normal, end quote. Well, normal is very different between men, and your PSA gland or your prostate gland volume is going to have a direct relation on what that actually comes out to. So a PSA density score of 0.15 or below is considered sort of the safe zone, the low risk zone. Now, above that doesn't mean that you absolutely have a problem, but it means that you have to take into account more tests and research to see whether you are in fact more at risk. So in 2016 and 17, again, the PSA tests bounced from 5.9 up to a new high of 8.7, went back to 7.7 and 6.8 again. I got my second MRI at Health Imaging Healthcare Specialists. Again, results were negative except for BPH. Again, a grade of PIRAD 2. My prostate had grown to 99 cc's by this time, and that actually dropped my PSA density score down to 0.07. In 2018, 2019, again, I had PSAs down as low as 5.6, as high as 7.9. But then in 2019, I started taking dutasteride for trying to shrink my prostate. And that's kind of a mixed bag because there are side effects with taking that medication, which I discovered later. And after taking it for a year and seeing no real drop in my PSA and not seeing basically any improvement in my urination or anything like that, I decided to drop it and switch over to Flomax, which I still take to this day. I got a third MRI in 2019 of December, results again negative, again a PIRAD 2 designation. My gland volume was 97 at that point, PSA density of 0.06. 2021, my PSA started rising again because I had stopped taking the Avidart, and the 6.4 to 7.8 was getting back to more of my normal range. By 21, it was back up to 8.9 and 9.1. I got my fourth MRI at Imaging Healthcare. Results were negative. And this time, I asked to have Dr. Schwartzberg himself personally review the MRI, and he did. And it came back a PIRAD 1, prior PIRAD 2, now a PIRAD 1. So even better news. The not so good news was my gland had grown again, now to 111 cc's and PSA density of 0.08. 2022, I hit a new high of a PSA of 10. 23 though, it dropped back down into the 8 range again. And this was when my urologist recommended that I take an ExoDx genetic test. So I took my first one in 2022 and it came back 44.4. Now that is above the range that the people that do the test feel that you're at no risk of advanced cancer. Think the cutoff was 15. So basically 15 and below, everything, don't worry. Above that, but it can go as all the way up to 100. So he was a little concerned about that, and he wanted to repeat the test again in 2023, which we did, and it was at 41.2, not a appreciable difference, but he definitely wanted to have another MRI. So I got a fifth MRI. Again, the results came back negative. Again, PIRAD 1. Again, the opinion was by Dr. Schwartzberg. And the other not great news is my prostate had grown to 124 by this time, which gave me the good news of a PSA density of 0.07. So now we have 2024. My test earlier this year came back 8.3, and my next PSA will be in October. And obviously, all of this is to be continued. So I'd just like to make a couple of quick points, and then we'll turn it over to the next speakers. And I'm going to stick around for any questions that anybody has, but please wait until the next speakers have their opportunity to talk. And so I've been on active surveillance for 15 years. Had I followed the urologist's suggestion of getting surgery back then, I very possibly could have suffered some very bad side effects, a deterioration of my quality of life, and for no reason at all. I may have been stuck with incontinence. I may have been stuck with ED, or both. But the important thing is that it would have been unnecessary. And that's really the core of where active surveillance is. It's determining who amongst all of the almost 300,000 guys that will be diagnosed with prostate cancer this year, at least half of them will fall in the low risk category. But because of lack of knowledge, or the priorities of the urologist, or pressure from family, or even just anxiety from themselves, they may elect to go ahead and have treatment and really not need it. Now, one of the big questions that comes up is, well, okay, what about you have 3+3 Gleason? Aren't you worried about that turning into metastasizing into more advanced cancer down the road? And that's been a big question hanging over active surveillance for many, many years. And basically, in 2024, the answer to that question is no. That 3+3 Gleason cancer is not going to metastasize into more advanced cancer. Now, that's not me, a non-doctor, saying this. This is not some individual on Facebook that thinks they're a medical expert throwing this stuff out. If you were to ask this question to Dr. Lawrence Klotz in Canada, or Peter Carroll of UCSF, or even our local Dr. Mark Scholes from PCRI, if you were to ask any of them that question, all three of them would say no, that 3+3 is not going to metastasize. Now, is it impossible that would never happen? Well, of course not. There's always that microscopic chance that could, in fact, metastasize. But we're talking microscopic. We're talking very, very, very rare cases of that ever happening. But what can happen is that you can grow a new cancer. That happens often, where you have maybe a lesion in one part of the prostate, and then maybe a year, 2, 5 years later, all of a sudden you find a new one. Well, it's not so much that that original one grew into a second one, but a new one grew. So that's where the active part of active surveillance comes in, knowing the fact that at one time you were diagnosed with some cancer, low risk cancer. Um, it doesn't mean you're completely out of the woods, but what it does mean is you can take, fear off the table, take anxiety off the table, and do regular testing that basically can give you peace of mind that you're not being at risk. Your risk of dying from heart disease is 10 times what it is for prostate cancer. So, if you really want to look at risk, you should look at your lifestyle and what you do and what you eat and all of these kinds of issues that will have a far bigger impact on someone with low risk cancer. Obviously, advanced cancer is a completely different animal. Biologically, it's completely different and it acts completely different. So that's a whole different ball game. But for those of us in the low risk category, active surveillance is a very, very viable alternative. And I have 15 years to show for that. So with that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'm going to turn it back over to Aaron. And again, I'll be around later in the meeting if there's any questions for me.
Thanks, Bill. Before you mute yourself, just one quick question. So all of this data is by way of diagnostics that perhaps somebody would not realize their prostate is growing as yours has. What physical symptoms did you experience over this time that would help somebody understand that BPH is going on if they're not otherwise getting all these diagnostic tests?
Well, as far as your prostate size, but what usually gets this whole process going is you're having urinary problems, or maybe you might have a little blood in your urine or something like that that sends you to the urologist. And so that's what really gets the train going. Now, the symptoms can be again, usually they're urinary focused, either frequency or just, your volume goes way down, or getting up 5 times at night, all these kinds of issues that basically don't equal cancer. They equal a urinary problem. So once you go to the urologist, then it's really up to them to start, narrowing down the list of what things it could be. And one of the things that they will do, of course, is give you a PSA test if you haven't already had one. And then hopefully make a informed decision from that point as far as what your next course is. If your PSA is low, now again, without an MRI, you don't really know how big your prostate is. Although if they do a biopsy, they can get a pretty good idea of size from that because they are, using a ultrasound. So basically, whether it's prostatitis, an infection treated with antibiotics, whether it's BPH, which the jury's out on that. There are no real good answers for BPH. They're working on it. There's a lot of people that put out information on supplements like saw pimento, for example. There's no evidence that shows that works. There's some men who anecdotally say it has helped them, and maybe for some reason it did, or maybe something else helped them, and they're taking that stuff and they think that's what helped them. It's hard to say, but basically it's those kind of symptoms that get you to the urologist, which then get you a PSA test. The one thing I will say that's really important, and thanks for asking that question, Aaron, it has now become protocol, though it's still not widely used or accepted, that if the urologist feels that you need a biopsy, let's say your PSA is 10, which depending on your prostate size may not be that unusual. But for a lot of people, that is a high number. Before you get that biopsy, you get an MRI. Even the AUA, the American Urologic Association, has finally accepted that as a proper protocol to do prior to a biopsy. Because unfortunately, once you get the biopsy, you may get on a train that's hard to get off of. If you get an MRI and they literally can find nothing but say cell structure that pretty much dictates you probably have BPH or possibly infection, then you see you don't have to go the biopsy route. You can immediately go do something else. So that's really an important point that needs to be made here.
Excellent. Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Bill, for the presentation. Very, very informative.
Yeah, and as Bill pointed out, we'll hold all the additional questions. Sorry that I butted in with one, but we'll hold those to the end to let all the speakers speak. So next up, we've got Mike McCarey.
I guess I'm done. Thank you.
Yeah.
It's been real.
Why did that go all the way to the end? I'm so sorry about that. Let's try this again. There you go. You're all set.
All right. Thanks, buddy. So everybody can hear me okay? Great. First off, it's great to be here. I love this organization. The fact that sharing helps so many people calm the nerves, lift the education. I've watched it over my 7 years. Still, we're approaching 7-year journey, and as I talk to other men that are starving for some kind of emotional relief and understanding about the whole prostate cancer process, and I see their faces change whenever I tell my story to them and I share it with them and say, my answers may not be your answers, but if you share this with other people, yourselves, you're going to help other people. So it doesn't have to happen just here. Please do this on a one-on-one basis as much as you can. So I'm just a common guy that came down with prostate cancer. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a scientist. I'm not an engineer. I don't have any of that kind of education, but I have, through my journey, formed a lot of opinions about the direction that would help me. And so I wanted to share all of that with you. And so with that, we will get started.
Sometimes I have to click back on this. Try it now just to see if it goes forward.
Okay.
Backward now. There you go.
It does. Awesome. All right, so here's going to be our agenda this morning. So first off, who am I? Kind of tell you a little bit about my background because you want to put that and my prostate cancer history together. We'll hit the history. And then I use an integrative approach of Western medicine and alternative medicine and try to be wise about that. I'm going to share with you some of the resources and some of the things that I've put together. I am an absolute believer that, for the very reasons you're here, education is the key to 2 survival pathways. One is our physiology, getting the right treatments at the right times in the right direction, and being wise about when and why we make selections and agreements with our physicians about getting those treatments. And secondly, our emotional survival. If you have the right education and you have informed decisions, we're going to talk about how that can lower stress. And what does lower stress do? It helps your immune system by having less cortisol going on. And it just makes you feel a lot more calm about this little journey that we're on. So here I am. As I guess you can tell, I'm a Caucasian. I'm not anything but that. I'm an Irish guy with light eyes and light skin. 73 years old. I'm married to my lovely wife of 36 years, Terry, over in the corner. She keeps me straight. I'm almost retired. I started a employee benefits business about 23 years ago. I sold off about 97% of it, but I wanted to keep, first off, I loved what I did for 23 years. Loved it. Loved going to work every day, which was kind of cool. Wasn't like that prior to that time. So I sold off about 97% of it, and I've kept a couple of customers, and it just kind of keeps me engaged, and it keeps me motivated, and it makes a little bit of mad money so Terry and I can go have a lunch or a dinner someplace whenever we would like to within reason. I'm very active physically. Always have been. It's just been a lifestyle. Currently, I surf 3 or 4 times a week if I can. Terry and I took up sailing about a year ago. Something we can do together as I ease my way into retirement. I love to go hiking. I've got a friend, we go up to the Sierras once at least, if not a couple times a year, and go on a nice trail hike or rock climbing. And then once a year I go to Utah with my son, and we go deer hunting. Sleep in a tent for 10 days at 10 degrees or down to 0 degrees, and I'm still asking myself why I do that every year, but it's because I can be with my son. So yeah, it's pretty awesome. I used to fly a lot, rock climbing, and I know I look like it today. Pro rodeo, that's how I grew up for 25 years. Cowboy boots, cowboy hat. Had to give it up just because I was moving on to other things that satisfied my adrenaline lifestyle. Watchful diet. I can't say enough about this. So what cures prostate cancer? It's not one thing. There's not a pill to swallow. There's not a bullet to step in front of. Well, I guess if you did that, you might cure its life. But we're not going to go that pathway. Your immune system does. And if my immune system was not operating perfectly, I wouldn't be standing here today because I wouldn't have prostate cancer, right? And I would probably offer that is the same with most of the men in this room. If your immune system and mine were operating perfectly and we needed no outside assistance to boost that immune system or shore it up or give it a lift, etc., we wouldn't be here. Diet is number one. It's the fuel that you put into your machine. So Terry and I both, and it's wonderful to have a mate, a companion who shares your eating lifestyle because it just makes it that much easier. You're not cooking 2 different types of meals. So organic everything. We reduced red meat and chicken. We took up juicing again. It used to be, we started it, but it was really, really hard. We had this noisy machine that was almost a 2-hour exercise to try to clean it, and frankly, we kind of drifted away from it, but we recently bought a new one. If you want to know, it's called a Kuving, K-U-V-I-N-G. This thing is a marvel of engineering science. I mean, it is really cool. It's quiet. In and out, we can make juice, I'd say, and clean up in, 20 minutes? Yeah, and we're good. Look into that. Lots of salads, veggies, no sugar, no starch. And the foods that we eat are all low glycemic foods, no packaged foods, no processed meats. If you're watching anything and reading, et cetera, you're going to find that these are the things that prohibit your immune system from functioning as well as it should. The next big one, repair in your body goes on at night during sleep. You have to take care of sleep. If you like to stay up real late to watch a nice Netflix series, et cetera, we do too. But, my wife might stay up and watch and finish an episode or something like that. 9:30, this little fat boy is going to bed because I know that I'm going to wake up. My body cadence has driven me to wake up like this morning, 5:45. I wanted to sleep later because we got in at 11 o'clock from going out with friends for dinner last night. Not as much sleep as I wanted, but so I have to regulate the time I go to bed. Then I know that I've got the other pillar taken care of, which is sleep management, and I want to make sure all of you do that too. Negative BRCA test. My father had prostate cancer diagnosis at 78, but he died of natural causes at 92. He was a real live cowboy. He was a really fun guy. My brother and I just loved him to death. Mother, no cancer, passed at 92 of natural causes. I have a brother. He has BPH, but no cancer. My father was married once before, so I have a half-sister. She had breast cancer, but she cured it, and she's spunky at 84 today. There's my family history, and there's me. So that's the body that has been presented to you and is talking today. My oncologist is Dr. McCay. How many people have Dr. McCay as? She is unbelievable. She's unbelievable, seriously. She's one of the smartest, most progressive, forward-thinking. Wow, I just can't say enough about her. So if you're trying to make up your mind about an oncologist and who you're going to go visit and select, first I would say get several opinions. Don't drink from, you're going to hear this a couple times from me, don't drink from one fountain, drink from several. Interview her, you'll be impressed. And I already mentioned it. Yes, sir.
Dr. McCay will talk to us in October.
Awesome. Everybody got that? Awesome. All right, so let's get to my history. And I'm going to start moving a little bit faster. I tried to have some fun here and give you a little bit of emoji reactions to some of the events that took place. So I went in for to get, my wife and I were going to head to Europe, and so I always travel with ciprofloxacin whenever I go out of the country, because if I get a GI thing, I can pop 500 milligrams of Cipro, and then that'll help me out until I can get to a physician, and then off we go. I went to go see him, and I said, by the way, we were 2.6 on my PSA score last year, and it's been probably 4 to 5 years since we've done a DRE, so let's do a DRE today. So he straps on the stuff and grabs the gel, and off we go, and he says, I feel it's too firm, and I feel a nodule, it's 2 lumps, it's too, it shouldn't be there. So go to Europe, come back, and then let's set it up so that when you come back, you see a specialist. We did that. Well, what do you think I'm doing every spare minute while I'm in Europe and in Italy and on the cruise ship? I've got my face in a tablet or a phone, and I'm learning about prostate cancer because I knew this much until that point, that much. It was terrifying. Came back, saw my specialist. He did a second check, a second DRE. PSA came back at 3.8, and he said, hey, you've only got a 15% chance of having prostate cancer. Let's check your PSA in 6 months. Well, the truth is I had scared the crap out of myself for the last 10 days in Europe, reading everything I was reading and not knowing what to pay attention to and what not to pay attention to. So I had a very aggressive position of trying to say, look, we're moving through this. We're going to do some testing right away. I don't like the word delay on anything. I don't like it at work. I don't like it in decision making, and I didn't want the word delay used in the medical progression of this thing that was scaring the crud out of me. So he said, let's check your PSA in 6 months. And I literally leaned forward and smiled and said, check yours in 6 months. I want an MRI guided biopsy next week, or an MRI next week. We did the MRI the next week. There's 3 lesions in there. 2 of them were benign. 1 was highly suspicious. 4 days later, we did an MRI guided biopsy, and that gave me the 3+4 Gleason score, or a 7. And like the little icon says, I'm going, oh my God. What do we do? So long story short, we watched it from May until August, and the PSA kept rising. So I had the, aggressive stance. I wanted this out of me. It scared me. It was too much that I didn't know about. So we did a radical prostatectomy in August of 17, started feeling really good. We did find out, though, that prior to surgery, the MRI showed that the lesion was encapsulated within the gland. And so in the parlance that the doctor told me, he said, gland out, cancer out, you're good to go, and that'll be that. Well, in the 3 months that transpired between 3.5 months between diagnosis and the actual surgery, we do the surgery, pathology comes back, and it has it's extended beyond the margin, so it had already left the gland, and it came back with a tertiary score of 5. And somebody's going to ask me about what tertiary score is. I'm not positive, but the way he explained it to me, my surgeon did, he said the tertiary score runs from 1 through 5, least aggressive, most aggressive. Thank you very much. Mine was 5. Well, that redoubled my concern about no delay, learn, make good decisions, et cetera. So after surgery for 7 months, my PSA fell to 0. Whoop, whoop. Life is good. The following August, or 7 months later, started to rise again. So here goes the concern flag, what's going on. We tracked it until August of 18, and I said, all right, done. It's growing now from 0. It had gone up to 0.18. And I know you're all thinking, oh my God, that is so low. It is. It's an absolute PSA that's extremely low, but the trend line was like Apple stock in many years ago. It wasn't doing this. It wasn't oscillating at all. The trend line was always up. So I interviewed several physicians, and by the way, I want to insert something here. You're going to hear me focus at the end about being your own advocate. Don't stand there like a guppy waiting for somebody to dump some food in the aquarium so you can eat. So you can have some advice. Talk to several surgeons, and if one says this opinion and another one has an entirely different opinion, you've got a tiebreaker you've got to take up. How can you proceed with one of those when you have two opposing opinions about the progression of your treatment plan, right? So you need to go see a third person, and in my mind, I was looking for commonality between at least two opinions. In the end, my wife and I interviewed 5 different physicians before I had surgery. We went after surgery, we interviewed 2 more. We'd already interviewed 1 for radiation. And so my point is, every time I selected a direction to move forward in, I felt confident that I was making the right decision. So after interviewing 5 surgeons, prior to surgery, they're shaving my belly and they're taking the blood pressure cuff, and I'm getting all ready for surgery and everything, and the nurse takes my blood pressure and comes back with like 121/64, and she goes, you know why you're here, right? I said, yeah, but I've done everything I can do. I talked to 5 people, that's between God and my surgeon, and off we go, right? So gain a lot of information. It just takes a little bit of time, and maybe the cost of a second opinion, with your physician or through your medical plan. 38 treatments of photon radiation, October 18th through December 28th of 18. It left me with radiation cystitis and radiation proctitis. We'll talk about that in just a second. I remained at a PSA of less than 0 to 0.01 until November of 2022, and then it started to rise. And then, so that's November of 22. July of 2023, it's gone to 0.04, so we're starting this Apple stock curve again. November of 23, the PSA is at 0.06, and about that time, I'm having trouble with my back. So I went to an orthopedic surgeon, and I asked for an MRI of my back and my left hip because the hip was feeling weird too. Calls me back in after that's all done, and he says, listen, I need to share something with you that's a little spooky, and he pulls up the image of the MRI of my left femur. 6 inches down from the head of the left femur was a 1.7 centimeter image of what looked like it could be a metastasis in my bone. Well, I'm just like freaking out. But that doesn't jive with a 0.06 PSA. Okay, I mean, it's like, something doesn't seem right. So anyway, I run to Dr. McCay. She orders a bone scan right away. She ordered a PSMA PET scan right away. The bone scan was done first, got the results back right away. It was negative. Life is good. All right, it hasn't moved to the bones. PSMA PET scan came back, and I had a 2 millimeter metastasis in the left perirectal lymph node region. That is about the size of a BB. I mean, it's really, really tiny. And you might think, why worry about it? Well, you need to worry about it. So talk to her about what we should do, and she says, hey, SBRT radiation is a new procedure that's really out. So instead of 38 treatments, you get 5. They call them fractions. Each treatment is a fraction. We discussed where to get it done. So UCSD had SBRT radiation that they could perform, and that would have been my first choice. But while all this is going on in the ever-present pursuit of more knowledge and solid decision-making, I ran across a PowerPoint presentation put on by a guy at UCLA named Dr. Amar Kishan. And he talked about an MRI-guided automatic or auto border sensing SBRT radiation. So the radiation part of it was exactly the same, but what guides the beams to the exact spot in your body is what was different. So the UCSD side didn't have that technology yet. They will soon. So in conversations with Dr. Kishan, Dr. McCay, I wanted heavy targeting because I got left with radiation proctitis and cystitis from the first 38 treatments, and I didn't want to repeat any of that. And the fact that with SBRT, they can control with each one of the fractions that come through to the target spot in the center, they can control the amount of radiation for each one, which allows the physician to control the damage that might be caused to peripheral tissues around that metastasis. Did that all make sense? Cool, awesome. So I go up to UCLA in March, 5 fractions of SBRT. I'm hoping for like a 0.02, 0.03, or a 0, and it came back at 0.08. It was like I'm bummed, but it wasn't 0.1 or 1.0, et cetera. It was the same, right? So what was the solution? What was happening? What was happening was it was either that they missed the metastasis, and frankly, it was really, really tiny, and they assured me that this size of metastasis with SBRT radiation at UCLA and UCSD, they do all the time. They go in, they can get them, they can eradicate them, remove them from the equation, and we'll move on, okay, with the next step, whatever that might be. So it was either that they missed it or they got it partially and another one is cropped up. We'll have to wait and see. This is our game, as we know. We live from test to test and result to result. So my next PSA is for September 19th, and we'll find out, it's going to be a PSMA PET scan, and we'll find out if there is something else going on in there, or did my body take longer than the traditional 90 days to respond to the deterioration in that metastasis, which is normal. So it's normally 90 days after radiation that you see the full effect. It could be that my physiology is a little different. I've always been told I'm a little different. And we'll see. I'll cross my fingers and hope that's the case. Let's move on with no issues with bladder incontinence. This was wonderful. I was so fearful of that. So ever since surgery, I didn't have to wear pads. I don't have any issues with continence, either the GI tract or the urinary tract. So it compliments to my surgeon, who was Dr. Timothy Wilson at Providence St. John's in Santa Monica. Everybody wonders about, are you going to lose sexual function? And I did. I lost about half of it. So half wasn't good enough to get the whole job done by itself, so it was going to need a little bit of help. And so the route that we chose to take, my wife and I, was an injectable called Trimix. Dude, just like the little smiley guy here next to that, works fine. So if you're worried about loss of sexual function, don't worry about it. There are things that are out there and techniques that can help you move on through it. Put that in the back of your mind. Don't worry about it today. Worry about other things in your care. I did have 5 events of hematuria, that's blood in the urine, in February, and I had a couple early this year, but that's from the radiation cystitis. All we can do is just kind of watch it. If it got worse, there are things that can be done, but it didn't. And then the radiation proctitis, which affects the rectal area. So what happened in the first 38 treatments of radiation, the rectum collects all the fecal matter that comes down from the large intestine. And just like a balloon, the rectum expands. And then when you finally go to the bathroom, of course, you void that and you get rid of it, and the rectum recedes back to its original size. Well, with radiation proctitis, you scar the rectum and it cannot expand as much, so it takes less fecal matter to get into my rectum that signals my body and says, hey, Mike, it's time to go to the little boy's room. So I might go to the bathroom 2, 3 times, 4 times before 8 o'clock. It's just smaller amounts each time. It's just the way it is. It's the new normal. Life goes on, and I'll take it. It's better than having a worse symptom, okay? All right, let's keep going. That's not that direction. So I talked about alternative medicine, and I use integration of both. I want to start moving faster. I'm giving too much detail. I have a tendency to do that. My wife says, if you ask Mike what time it is, he'll tell you how to make a watch, and it's really true. I do believe in, because of all the research and reading, I have a constant diet of that there is an integrated approach between using Western medicine and alternative medicine. And what's funny is if you talk to Western medicine physicians, they'll say, you what? You're talking or even considering alternative medicine? And if you talk to the alternative medicine practitioners, they'll say, don't dare let the Western medicine practitioners touch your body. You got to go our way. Look, we're the consumer. It's up to us to look at both sets of solutions that are available, make smart selections to either pass or utilize or to what degree you're going to, put that solution into effect and move on. So what I've chosen to do is I've got there's a BioCare hospital is located in Tijuana, and everybody goes, Mexico? Listen, there are 21 clinics in Mexico that practice alternative medicine, and they have wonderful programs. A buddy of mine and I did the research. We went down and interviewed the final two. We interviewed them both in one day, and we ended up selecting BioCare. I find those people to be respectful. They're loving. They're there for your care. They're not out there chasing your pocketbook. And I'm one of those suspicious folks that every time I sit in the lunchroom, I talk to the other patrons that are there, and I ask them how long they've been coming and how they heard about it, et cetera. And I have yet to hear a medium to negative opinion. So my strongest endorsement is if you want to pursue that path, give these folks a call, check them out. I find them to be wonderful. What I've done since my surgeries and radiation and all that kind of stuff to keep boosting my immune system is I go down there once a quarter and I spend the day. First thing I do is I get in their hyperbaric chamber. Hyperbaric chamber is a pressurized chamber. They raise it to about 1.4 atmospheres. There's a lot written in science about this in the NIH and PubMed, et cetera. You can find it. It promotes healing because it hyperoxygenates your body. And when you hyperoxygenate your body, you are boosting your body's ability to use its immune system to the fullest potential. I go from there, and they pop in an IV. It's vitamin C, glutathione, and some heavy metal chelation agents. So it kind of aggregates the heavy metals, and you just void them through your urinary tract. So I do that for 5 days, once a quarter. And actually, because my PSA number is starting to rise, I'm considering going once every 2 months. But I just did this a week and a half ago. So I'm going to give that some thought, and then I'll move on from there. I also did a lot of research on saunas and cold plunges. I used to go to a business and I joined it, but then I looked at the cost of the membership, and I found that I could buy an inexpensive sauna and an inexpensive single-person cold plunge. So I get in there and the water's about 47. Anybody want to come to my house and try it this afternoon? No. I seriously believe in this because it does. If you read the research, and we don't have time for me to go into all of that stuff with each one of these topics today, so I'm going to, leave you with the slides and my statement that I dig into everything that I have put into play. This is great for your body. It's great for your immune system. And when you do a cold plunge for about 4 hours, you've got a dopamine lift, and you just feel wonderful. Not buzzed. Not buzzed. You feel wonderful. You just feel great. 4 minutes? 4 minutes, yeah, 3 is about the minimum, they say, 55 degrees or less, and I do about 5. I love it, yeah, and then you feel 4 hours, you feel like, you just feel great. You feel like you woke up with the best night's sleep going, and I try to do it at 1 o'clock in the afternoon if I can. I take supplements, I take a bunch of them, you're gonna see the list in a few minutes, we'll get to the supplement meeting. Juicing we talked about already. We added juicing because there's a long history of the Gerson Clinic using juicing as well as other supplements in their program to help boost your body's ability to fight the invaders. Research. Why? Well, to find the cure and to stay on top of it. I get really, really comfortable when I hear my physician give me some advice, and I've read a little bit about that, or I go home and I read about it, and it reconfirms maybe some other physicians' opinions. So listen. The big things I would say is listen selectively. When you listen to a podcast, keep a notepad by you. If they give you the name of a drug, or if they give you a protocol, if they give you the name of a physician, an information resource, write it down, follow up on it. It's funny, I thought you were holding your hand in the air. I was going to stop for a question. Sorry about that. If you are educated about your decisions, you have low stress. And if you make low stress decisions, they are typically better decisions. Okay, you don't have panic involved with them, you don't have last minute involved with them, and you don't have pressure because you've educated. For me, everything is about boosting my immune system and reducing stress. That's my life now. Still go out and enjoy everything that I do, but those are the two things that I want to do. The other thing I would suggest, if you don't do this, I've found it really, really helpful. Open up a Google account. If you don't have one, all you need is an email with Google, a Gmail account. Start a Word document, start 2 of them. One of them says My Cancer Journal, which are all the things that happen to you. And when you go to the doctor, or when you read something, or when you have a test result that comes back, you just put in a few notes. Or if you run into an article that was part of the protocol that you did, you copy and paste that hyperlink to the article or to the video, et cetera, and you just keep that. But that's your journal, the things that happen to you. The second Google document is My Cancer Resources. You can access these on your phone or your tablet or your PC or in a hotel in Greenland, because all you have to do is log into your Google account. Super easy. I've got 45 pages now in this resources document, and I've got stuff that goes back 6 years. So all of a sudden I'll be in my house one day and I'll go, oh man, I remember that so-and-so said something about, I can't remember it exactly, but I can search on keywords, just something close, and boom, there it is. All your resources, all your notes. If you need your history for some reason, it's right there. So I strongly suggest that you keep a journal and keep a resources document, because we get so much thrown at us. I've talked with you, and I'm going to show you information on the supplements, I believe, next. And I want you to know that all of these resources that you see right here, when I hear about something, or if somebody tells me, hey, Mike, take curcumin 95, I don't just go run out and buy it because some guy told me I should take curcumin 95. I'm going to go to the NIH right here, NIH, or the mossreport.com, New England Journal of Medicine, et cetera, and confirm that there's some validity to the claim that taking that supplement can either control PSA or help create a hostile environment for prostate cancer to proliferate in my body. That's the goal. So let's move on. There's my list. There's 16 of them. And by the way, I'm going to give you a sheet at the end of the meeting. I brought 50 copies. It is that list, so you don't have to take a picture because you can get the sheet. I didn't start all of these all at once. I started, this is the list that is built so far. And I may add one. If I feel like I'm taking too many at some point, I might say, okay, in ranking of importance, which one am I going to drop off my list because I'm going to replace it with the one that appears to have better predicted results, et cetera. So we could talk 10 minutes on each one of these. We don't have that time, so I'm just going to say, take this list. I'm giving you the resource, where I buy it, what it costs, how many pills are in it, et cetera, on this worksheet. And please sit down and look into each one of these. I truly believe, well, actually, I think I have a slide that says this, so don't get ahead of yourself. Yes. Are the supplements working? I couldn't look at God and say, yeah, the supplements are working. I know that my PSA has risen ever so slowly. I'm still sub 0.1, still below that. And I've been taking all those supplements for 5 years, the majority of them. Take them 3 times a day. I believe that if I stopped taking those supplements, I would see a steepening of the line for the increase in my PSA. I truly believe that. So I don't want to stop taking them. I'm going to keep going, and I'm going to keep doing research. I'll keep double checking. I'll go back and say, is there new science written about one of those or any of them? And if I don't feel comfortable with it, boop, off the list it goes. I'll replace it with something else if it makes sense. Let's keep going. All right, so second part of our life is emotional survival, because it's no fun laying in bed at night when you're trying to go to sleep and your movie's going. It's no fun waking up in the morning and your wife or your partner is still asleep and you're trying to be quiet and all you do is think about your movie, or in the middle of the day. There's just too much stress. So I've got 5 emotional tips, things that at different times made their way to me in my front of mind. So I try to practice these to keep stress low, so I can survive and I can enjoy life. I mean, let's face it, I'm standing in front of you today. I've got a little color in my skin because I've been surfing 4 times in the last week. I want to make sure that I'm enjoying that part of my life while I still have this military grade focus on what's in front of me, okay? So the first one, be positive. If it requires rearranging the way you think, damn it, do it. It's not something you're going to do overnight, but you can find the positive in everything. I think my wife and my family would tell you that I am the ever-present, ever-smiling, always cracking a joke guy. So yeah, it's a part of my personality, but I know that anybody can find the positive in something. Resist the negative. In other words, for example, if you open up a test on Tuesday, a test that you're like, oh God, what's going to be in there? It's going to give you a result. That test could have a result that was worse than that. Maybe that's the positive for that test. You've got to rearrange the way you think. And by the way, don't forget to thank our Lord Jesus Christ and Savior, because if you pray, praying helps calm your nerves. It gives you hope and it gives you strength, okay? Eliminate stress wherever you can. Stress promotes cortisol in your body. Cortisol is deleterious to your immune system's ability to fight. So if it takes some help to help you find a way to organize, or organize the way you think, organize work, organize family, whatever it takes, or reduce workload, try to get things organized so you reduce stress, you just got to do it. Last thing I wanted to tell you here on this page was visualization. So how many people here have seen stories on Olympic athletes and they use visualization to help calm their heart rate, calm their nerves, slow down, focus, etc. So anyway, I was going through the typical, oh my God, I've got this PSA test that's coming, and my mouse would hover over the hyperlink that's going to open it and go, okay, God, you got to give me a good test here because I've really been good. I did good things this week and last week, etc. And then you open it, and then you have to deal with the result. And that result is always one of three conditions. It's either great, it's a great result, well, whoop, whoop, nothing to worry about, right? Or it's medium or just right in the center, which means it may not be positive, it's not negative, etc. But the third one is the killer, and that's the one that we worry about. It's the one that we give ourselves stress about. So I don't know, this hit me about a year ago. I was like, oh no, wait a minute. In pro rodeo, believe it or not, I used to use visualization to try to help me when I was competing, to see myself in that event and performing and doing what I was supposed to do. And it helped me do better, it really did. So why don't I do that now? So what I do today, and I've been doing for a year, is when I go get a test, as soon as I get the test, I start this visualization where it's this middle one, which is mediocre, and the center one, or the far right, which is a negative. I literally watch myself in my mind's eye opening the test result. I know that I've done all my homework. I've done everything I can. I've talked to my physician. They've given me the best advice they can, and it may be good news and it may be bad news. And I see myself opening it. I don't worry about the first two. Good news, who cares, man? This life is good, right? It's what we wanted. Middle one, okay, but this one over here. When I open it, and if I see in my visualization, if I see that it's a negative number, I see me calmly responding to that. So what did I just do? I took the surprise out of the event that's going to occur in 1 or 2 or 3 days. Yes, sir.
And you took the power away from the event to control how you react.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't, you're a believer, I can't tell you what a difference this made for me. My wife and I sat side by side when I got this last PSMA test a couple of months ago. I was hoping, fingers crossed, legs crossed, eyes crossed, everything, for a 0 or a 0.01, 0.02, and it opened up at 0.08, the exact number I had when I went in and got it done. It was not the number I wanted. I had done my movie. I knew how I was going to react when I opened it. And I'm telling you now, God is my witness, my heart rate didn't elevate, not a bump, not one. My wife immediately, not knowing I'd done my movie, says, "Are you okay? Are you all right?" She's concerned. She loves me. I was fine. I said, "We're good. I know what we're going to do from here." I have a plan. I just took the surprise out. So please try that. It really works. Control the dark place. So I don't know, about 4 years ago, this one hit me. And we all do this. All of a sudden, the big cloud comes over us. And we see ourselves in the final days of this horrific death. We've lost 90 pounds. We look like a Halloween movie. What family members are coming to my funeral? How are they going to talk about it? It's just horrible. And we all know what that feels like. The reality is we need to process these thoughts, okay? We really, really do, because that's going to give you strong mental health, and you need that as you progress through this journey. So one day I'm driving, I know exactly where I was in Camarillo when it happened. Driving down the road, and all of a sudden it hit me. I thought, 60-second rule. So when the dark place comes, you look at your watch or your phone, whatever gives you the time. You look at the second hand, and you go, all right, let's dive in. 60 seconds of dark place. Let's go. Let's go at it, man. And I'm telling you, can you hear me?
Adjust that.
Oh,
There we go.
right on. You go to the dark place and you go hard. Just get after it. 60 seconds later, all right, we're done. Moving on. And you move on. Now, I might get another dark place moment 7 minutes later. Guess what happens? 60-second rule. And then I find that the more I found that the more I did this, the less frequent my dark place moments occurred. And honest to God, today, I hardly ever get one. But when it does, even though I've been doing it 3 or 4 years, you'd think like, no. Second hand, 60 seconds later, it's out of here, and I'm moving on with my life because I have a lot to celebrate. Okay? So give that a try.
Hey, Mike, why don't you wrap up in about 2 minutes?
You got it. And actually, that's kind of where we are.
Okay.
Yeah. The other thing is, once a prostate cancer patient, always a prostate cancer patient, accept it, move on. It finally occurred to me, because I was having some dark place moments, that if I was a soldier in Afghanistan and I came back with one leg, I'm not a lizard. My leg ain't growing back. And for me to sit around and hope that my leg was going to grow back, a lot of wasted energy, right? A lot of emotional energy being poured into it for no reason. So what does a good soldier do that loves their life? They say, I've got one leg, let's go find some things I can do with one leg. And they make the most out of their life. Off they go. So do the same thing. It ain't going to go away. You're always going to be monitoring and learning and talking to your physicians so you can make the best out of your life and keep everything under control. Accept it and move on. And you'll find that you have far less stress. Here's the big one. Be your own advocate. Aaron talked about this early on in the presentation today. He talked about be strong, be your own advocate. Don't stand there like a guppy in the aquarium with their mouth open going, I hope my guy comes by and drops a little bit of food and it's the only, you need to drink from several sources. Move it forward. Don't wait for somebody to call you. If you've got a question, get on the phone, get on the computer, etc. So move forward. It's easier than you think. If it's not your personality, like me, I'm Mr. Go Get 'em. If that's not your personality, you can make this particular element in your life, in this prostate cancer pursuit, you can make it work for you. Did I go the wrong way? Da-da-da. Here it is, wrapping it up. So this is a complete healthy prostate cancer patient. Education, diet, medical support, both Western and alternative, integrated in the right way. Have a positive, low-stress outlook. Be your own advocate. Peer support. Find yourself an accountability partner. Find somebody you can talk to. Find somebody you can do research with. Share articles. Share fears. Somebody you can call, and if you need to, cry with them. It works. It does. And I told you there was a sheet that I was going to give you. I've got a bunch of them up here. We're going to put about half of them out there on the thing. I'll leave you with this. Thank you very much. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you, Mike. That was a fantastic presentation. Let's see. I want to make sure I'm sharing my thing so Bill can see it. I forget if sorry, I wasn't sharing with you, Bill. Let's go on to Herschel. Let's make sure I got the first slide here. There you go. All right, Herschel Kagan for you.
Oops, need some air. Who knows what I was trying to do?
Dribble. Bounce back.
Right, dribble. That's how it all started. I had BPH, as previous speakers had mentioned, and I was on doxazocin for about 9 years, and with the dribbling, went to see my primary care physician and got a referral to a urologist. And the urologist talked to me and said, well, now we'll try Flomax, as one of the speakers had already mentioned. And then I was about to leave, and she said, drop your pants and underwear. Oh. I got the urologist's handshake. And she then said, I'm scheduling you for a biopsy. Which reminds me of the patient who went to see the urologist, and the urologist had 2 fingers with covers, and the patient said, why 2? And the urologist replied, that's my second opinion. So I go for the biopsy and get back with a Gleason score of 4 + 5, a 9. A 10 is a rarity, so 9 is high as you can go. So the urologist starts me on Lupron and abiraterone in February, and then I go for a DEXA scan. That's just the bones, and a MP MRI. And I get back the results, and there was a word I heard one of the presenters made, it's suspicious. Oh, so I didn't like that. Suspicious, either there is a metastasis or there isn't. So I then requested a PSMA PET scan. That revealed I was oligometastatic, which is 5 or less metastases. For those of a Greek origin, oligo just means small in number. Then I had a genetics test, which didn't reveal anything out of the ordinary. I started reading literature about prostate cancer and felt I wanted something more. I just didn't want to remain on the testosterone suppressing drugs. I wanted remission. So I made inquiries about radiation and made an inquiry at the UCS Moores Cancer Center. And by luck, I got Dr. Munt, who has spoken to this group more than, 3-4 times?
Every year since 1912.
Okay. One of the most spectacular, caring doctors I've ever come across. So then I went through a program of radiation of the prostate, the IMRT, that lasted, I think, about 6 weeks. Looking back at it, there was now, I think, a humorous note, but at the time it wasn't. One of the requirements for radiation of the prostate is you have a full bladder. Now, with BPH, that can be a little bit difficult. So if I drank too much water, coffee in the morning, out it would go, and I'd be lying there, beep, come back in 20 minutes. If there was too much, when's this going to be over? When's this going to be over? But after about 2-3 weeks, I figured out just how much liquid I have in the morning before going in.
Do you need the next slide?
Yes.
Okay. I'll take this and let me remove this a second. Hang on. Move that off the screen. Okay.
In October, I decided to switch drugs. The reason for switching from abiraterone to enzalutamide was there's some evidence, it's weak, that enzalutamide is better. There's also, to me, a little something. If you take abiraterone, you have to take prednisolone with it to reduce inflammation and calm an overactive immune system. So I prefer to take a hormone suppressing drug which didn't require the prednisolone. The other switch was from leuprolide to relugolix, or otherwise brand name Orgovix. The former is an injection which I got once every 3 months, but it remains in the body. And with the pill Orgovix, it goes away in about a month. My goal was to stop the hormone drugs and see what happens. See if the testosterone comes back and see if the PSA remains at 0.1. In early 2024, I stopped both the drugs, and I negotiated with the medical oncologist if the PSA should go to 4, I would resume the hormone treatment, and I would also request a PSMA PET scan. Right now, the PSA is still at 0.1. From what I've gathered from my readings, anything below 0.1 is interesting, but not significant. Okay. Oh, okay. Aaron's right ahead of me. Now, I'm going off what appears to be a tangent, and it isn't. I had a PSA test in around 2012, and it was 2.5. Nothing to be concerned with. I had a PSA test right after I saw the urologist, and it was 14.5. So what's going on? How come I never had any PSA tests in the intervening 10 years? The primary care physician didn't order it. What happened? So I found out the the Preventive Service Task Force was responsible for this. So just some background on the Preventive Services Task Force. It consists of 16 doctors who volunteer their time, and it was started by the NIH in 1984. The group makes recommendations, so they make recommendations in the area of breast cancer, what age should you start, how often should you have it, in prostate cancer, in a colonoscopy. So how does the Preventive Services Task Force come up with these conclusions, or not conclusions, recommendations? They look at clinical trials, and they look at the result of research papers. And then they come up with a decision. A lot of this to me is highly judgmental. If you're trying to evaluate what's the problem with, well, not problem, what are the risks of overdiagnosis? What are the risks of overtreatment? It's quite difficult. I've been looking at the sources that they've used, and I come out confused. The clinical trials aren't that perfect. The research papers conflict, and so it comes down to a judgment call. The task force made its first recommendation in 2012, and they came up with a grade D. I'll come back to that. And then in 2018, they said, for men over 70, grade D. And then for men aged 50 to 69, a grade C. So, okay. Ready? The next one. Oops. Oh yeah.
Here's the grades.
That's it, okay. So, Yeah, we'll start with the D. We can ignore the I. The D is what they first came out with, and that was saying primary care physicians, which is to whom their recommendations go, don't do any testing. No PSA testing. How many here think there should be no PSA testing? I'm talking to the choir. They did this because they felt, well, there wasn't that much advantage to testing. Then, okay, now we go to the other. Okay. Then these are the other three categories. The opposite of the D would be the A. We're sure about it, everybody gets tested. And B is, well, we're not that positive, but we think everybody should be tested. And then C, we're not that sure, and to me, the part that got me was patient preferences and professional judgment. And I had this imaginary scene. You're going to the doctor for your annual physical. You've spent 18 minutes talking about blood pressure, heart, problems with the hip. You've got 2 minutes left. Let's talk about whether the pros and cons of the PSA. It's not going to happen. The doctor either has decided beforehand, you're going to have the PSA, or the doctor's following the recommendation of the task force and saying, there isn't going to be a discussion. Okay, next. I picked this report out because it showed what I felt. We'll come to the sentence in the second paragraph. For men 75 and older, the incidence rate decreased from 2004 to 2011, then increased 43% from 2011 to 2018. For both age groups, the increases were across all races. This is for metastatic prostate cancer, which was what I have. So they're saying, without the PSA testing, the number of men who were found to have metastatic prostate cancer went up 43%. When I read this, my feeling was, thank you, task force. I'll read the last paragraph. The researchers note that these increases stand in contrast to the decreasing trends in incidence of metastatic prostate cancer between 2004 and 2009, before the task force stopped recommending routine PSA screenings for men. As I mentioned earlier, the task force later came back and went from the D rating to the C rating, in which the individual discussed it with the professional, and the patient's preference was taken into account. Aaron is mind reading, I thank him. This is an attempt to put things in perspective. If you started out with 1,000 men, who are going to be screened. $240 would have a positive PSA result. That is perhaps misleading. As you get older, your prostate grows, and the PSA for indicating possible prostate cancer keeps going up. So there is no one number. We heard something like, if it's above 4, I think the previous speaker mentioned, it was 4.1. That couldn't get insurance because it was 0.1 above. It's a continuum. The higher the PSA goes, the more likely it is prostate cancer. If you have a PSA of 50, it's close to 100%. So if a patient is talking to the doctor should come back and say, this is your PSA adjusted for your age, prostate size, and it's 7. The probability of your having prostate cancer is a certain percentage. And then you as a patient can say, well, the percentage is 5%. I don't want to do any further testing. Or it comes up, it's the probability of prostate cancer is 85%. 85%? Quick, I want something done. I can't wait. And let's look at the next one. So out of the 1,000 men, 5 will die of prostate cancer. And then the men who avoided dying of prostate cancer, 1.3. And this was perhaps a basis for the task force issuing their ruling of saying if 1.3 men out of 1,000 avoids dying, we shouldn't be going around testing. We're getting into here a calculus of life. If I come up with a drug that will save 1 out of 1,000,000, should the drug be approved by the FDA? If it's 1 out of 100,000, should it be approved? If it's 1 out of 100, 1 out of 10, 1 out of 5, what's the cutoff? I do not know the answer to that. But my conclusion was, I am collateral damage. The task force saying no PSA testing allowed my prostate cancer to become metastatic. Was the task force, do I think they were wrong? I don't know. It's a much too complex area. It's one based upon research papers, clinical trials, and mostly judgment. Thanks.
All right, thanks a lot, Herschel. I too am one of those collateral damage individuals, and so I sympathize. And this is definitely a good emphasis that you should be your own advocate and not rely upon the doctors. Things have changed in the profession a lot in the last 20 to 30 years. We no longer just walk into a doctor and let them do whatever the hell they please, whatever they think is best. They even push the decisions off to us to make them. And hopefully we don't have situations like this in the future, but what solves that is being our own advocates. So let's have a general round of applause for every speaker today. We really did have a great group here. I'm not sure if Bill Manning is still online or not. Looks like he is. And
still here.
why don't I have both Herschel and Mike come up to the podium. I'm going to run around with the microphone for questions. And guys, speak up, or step up to the mic so that we'll be able to get the response as part of the recordings. I got two questions here to start with.
This one's real easy. I forgot. Maybe I missed it. Herschel, what is your current age today?
86.
Yeah, my question is for Bill Manning. It was very interesting, your story about your PSA journey. And with all the tests and you've run through, can you really definitively say you have prostate cancer? Or, give me an idea. Do you have it or not?
Well, that's a great question. And I guess the answer to that would be technically no. In other words, I've had 10 years of MRIs and originally the colored Doppler ultrasounds, and basically with 5 MRIs, granted the last biopsy I had was, over 10 years ago, but I'd say the short answer to that is no. And as an adjunct to that answer, you might say, well, then what the hell am I doing here? And that would be a good question. And the reason is because I feel duty bound to share my story amongst guys who do not get exposed to some of the information regarding low risk prostate cancer, and what the alternatives are and how much has changed over the last 15 years.
One thing to add about that too is that everything that Bill Manning has done has potentially avoided him having prostate cancer, if in fact the answer is that he doesn't have it. A lot of these techniques with active surveillance. I mean, let's face it, none of us had prostate cancer at 20. Did we do things along the way that resulted in a higher chance of us getting cancer besides just genetic type of stuff? And potentially especially the dietary changes that Bill took on. A lot of these things do impact the progression of the cancer developing. And I know that for me, initially they said, oh, you're too young, you don't have cancer. Maybe it's just prostatitis, right? Something that can cause an irritation that will potentially result in prostate cancer developing. And so, these are great techniques that Bill followed that essentially allowed him to avoid any treatment.
Thanks, Aaron. And that is a very, very valid point. And, to make one extension on that, if and when the time comes that I do develop prostate cancer again, and or it turns into be a advanced version, then of course I would seek treatment. Being on active surveillance doesn't mean that you're anti-treatment. It means you're anti-unnecessary treatment. And if I could take 30 seconds real quick, I forgot one slide. I'll make it fast. It's a graphic that I think you might find interesting. This is my PSA journey. So on the far left is the year 2000. On the far right is the year 2024. That big straight line all the way up to 2005, I think it is is basically because I only had one test way back when that I discovered by accident. Then the second one was a deliberate test, and then the zigzag seesaw all the way up through today is my PSA up and down journey. So it shows you how radically your PSA score can change. The second to the top right line here, this is the number 10. So you see I did hit up number 10 once and pretty close to it, and then right on it once. This was when I was on that drug, and here's the size of my prostate as it's grown over time, as has my PSA. So sorry for forgetting that slide, but I thought you might be interested to see what 24 years of PSAs look like.
I have two questions for Herschel. The first question is, I'm not a plant, but it seems like I am. What do you recommend for people who have sons who have metastatic metastatic prostate cancer? And also, could you give some of the people your background so they know how you were able to find a lot of this stuff that you found? Thank you.
Soon as I found out what was happening, I immediately informed my son, get a PSA every year. Answer the second question. I have a certificate in biotechnology, and I've worked in laboratory information management systems. So reading the technical papers was at times challenging because of the jargon, but by and large, I understood what they were all about.
Any more questions in the back here?
Yes, this is a question for Mr. Rome. You mentioned the importance of sleep management, and do you take any supplements to aid you in this quest?
I do, and I think it's because of my personality that I even need it. I'm pretty ampy most of the time, as my wife would tell you, and so when I go to bed, it's interesting. I can lay down in bed and I'm asleep. I'm gone in 3 to 5 minutes. That's it. I don't care what's going on. That's it. But 2 o'clock, 3 o'clock, somewhere along in there, then I wake up, go to the bathroom once, and come back, and then the movie starts. And it's about carrots, it's about mortgage, it's about solar power, it's about my car. I mean, I rarely think about, so anyway, I use 3 different supplements. One's called Apigenin, Apigenin. The second one is L-theanine, Theonine. And the last one is L-threonate, and it's magnesium. Magnesium threonate, excuse me, not L. Well, it's magnesium L-threonate, Threonate. They are not opiates. I tried Ambien one time, and I turned into a psycho man, and the second or third day, I was just like, no. But these are nice supplements that just help you relax. I learned about them through a guy named Andrew Huberman. Has a wonderful podcast. It's all about science. I started taking them, and they're just awesome. And I don't wake up with a big hangover, and when you take sleeping pills, et cetera. You use cannabis? I do. I have a CBN and a THC. It's half and half. 10 milligram, and I bite it in half, and I do that about every 4th night. So you know how 2 o'clock in the morning when you can't go back to sleep? It rarely. No, I don't take anything in the middle of the night because I'm afraid that if I start it then I'm going to be dealing with it till 10 o'clock in the morning, 12 o'clock. I don't want that. I'd rather be tired. Tired I get. Tired I can manage. But I don't want a medication hangover. Just my personal choice. So if I take anything, it is right before I go to bed.
For those not familiar with CBN, it is, I believe, a synthesized version of either THC or CBC, which are the more commonly referred to chemicals. But CBN is much more related to helping you sleep. So it is a interesting one to try. A couple things that I want to jump in here with. First of all, lucky that you can fall asleep, because I'll sit there forever and not be able to fall asleep, because my movie starts at like 10 o'clock at night, not 2 o'clock in the morning. So I'm very jealous. Sleep is definitely, it was on my mind years ago. I have always slept terribly. That very well could be why I developed cancer earlier than I might have otherwise. I know that some studies have actually said that use of melatonin has been linked to an increased chance of getting cancer. I would almost say it's one of these false correlations, not that I know, but it's like, hey, wouldn't people that are having problems with sleep, try melatonin, yet also be on track really for premature prostate cancer anyway. So I think that in general, it is very important to get help with sleep. Shoot, there was one more thing I was going to say about the sleep. Oh, have you experimented with having a little extra protein just before you go to bed? No. I also wake up at 2 o'clock in the morning, not just to go to the bathroom, but my acupuncturist, who is meticulous on like what is going on with her body at every moment, she's aware of some situations where in the middle of the night your body triggers an adrenaline response because it's out of protein, basically. And that ends up waking you up at something like 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. Sometimes a little bit of protein can help you essentially not wake up. And I could also see that adrenaline also being like, hey, did you worry about this? Did you worry about that? Causing some of that type of mental activity as well.
I'll take that on. Thank you.
Yeah. Anyone else for questions here?
Yeah, and he had a question as well. Gentlemen.
You got your question answered, right? Oh, that's right. I saw your hand earlier.
I had a question for our first speaker about the China study. Could you say a little more about that?
Sure. The China study was done by Dr. Colin Campbell. He wrote it, I think it was back in 2000, well, anyway, around 2010. And basically it's he was a doctor that worked for a very large corporation that was studying the effects of protein on different populations. I strongly suggest you look up the book and see the description of it. So I'll just be short about it. But basically what he discovered through scientific study was the effects of animal protein on cancer, and most specifically breast cancer and prostate cancer. And the book goes into a considerable amount of detail. Since the book's publication, and it's had a second publication not that long ago, they founded the Nutritional Studies Foundation, a nonprofit for researching dietary effects on cancer, and then also the Forks Over Knives book and movie, another one I could recommend. But the bottom line is what the book recommends is a vegan diet. And that's what I have done for the last 15 years with one minor tweak. And that is that my wife and I do have some egg whites for breakfast occasionally. Otherwise, it is a vegan diet. Now, the one thing I would put out for a lot of the general population that don't like that idea, my suggestion is that you don't have to do something like this cold turkey. You can always dedicate some of your time to doing a a plant-based diet for several days a week. Maybe increase it if you see favorable results. But the big goal is to do something that is sustainable, where a lot of people have trouble or fail in making such a strong dietary U-turn is that they don't have good advice, they don't have research, having a dietitian helping with that, which actually the Campbell Institute can do with recipes and explaining the nutritional value of all these different recipes that they have. The problem that some people have is that they go into this without enough preparation and high expectations, and then within a week or two, you know, their energy level is down, they feel terrible, they think this is, you know, a waste of time, and that's the end of that. So that's what the China study book is all about.
Yeah, and I believe we have a copy of the China study on the library table out front, or you can ask Bill Bailey. He might be able to locate it for us. But with that, I know that there are a couple more questions I didn't get to, but why don't we ask those to the speakers over our luncheon and wrap up the meeting from here. Thank you so much for attending. I expect all those people that raised their hands about volunteering to come up and talk to me right now as well. Thanks a lot for joining us today. And again, how about a round of applause for all of our speakers? Thank you. Thanks, Bill.